All right, welcome, folks. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Let's start off with a 30-minute meditation. So you might find your way to a comfortable posture. Whatever that feels like for you in this moment. Something supportive, something that allows the body to be still for some period of time. Perhaps the spine is straight. You might lift up through the crown of the head and tilt the chin a bit. When you find that supportive posture, you might take a few deep breaths, really kind of lengthening the exhale. This longer exhale is a signal to the nervous system that it's okay. Everything is all right. It's time to relax. And on your own time, you might let that go and return to a more normal rhythm of breathing. You may let attention come to rest on the breath, wherever you feel it the most prominently. Just very gently. Letting the breath arise and change and pass away, all on its own. There's no need for the breath to be any certain way, or any kind of force to be used. It's just a receiving, just a noticing. And at some point, if it hasn't happened already, you'll notice that the mind has wandered away from the breath, gone off into thought or some other part of the body. This is okay. This is okay. That is what minds do. The thing to do is just return attention to the breath as gently as possible. No need for anything other than that. You might check in with yourself. You might look and see how practice is being held. Is it being held with gentleness, with kindness, without expectation of how practice should be going? Or is it being held with harshness, with perhaps self-criticism or judgment, of wanting practice to have a certain outcome? And if it's the former, this is good and skillful. This is the way to hold practice. And if it's the latter, you might see if you can cultivate a bit of gentleness, a bit of kindness towards yourself and towards practice. Practice is this gift, this offering that you give yourself and the world, moving towards a world with less suffering. Can be a lovely, beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be harsh. There's a little meditation technique that I like. Perhaps you might want to try this on. It's that when the mind comes back to present from being lost in thought, you give it a little treat, maybe a mental pat on the back. Maybe it's spending a few seconds and some pleasant sensation in the body. Maybe it's generating gratitude for being here, for being able to practice. Some small pleasant thing that you can do to reward the mind for coming home. You might try that out if that feels good to you. And if it feels good to you, you might let awareness expand. Let in all the sense doors. Let everything be received. Sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, thought, mental phenomena. Everything can be received just in the same way as you receive the breath. This gentle reception, this gentle letting of phenomena arise and change and pass away, all on their own. In this flow of phenomena arising, changing, and passing away, notice that there is what seems to be you. But notice that this too must be phenomena. Otherwise, how would you perceive it? And these phenomena too arise, change, and pass away. What you take to be you. Notice that these phenomena, sensations of the body and mind, are not separate. Notice the feeling of the air on the skin, how the mind may have thoughts or feelings about that. Notice when a sound arises, a pet or a siren. you all for sitting with me. Hi, Johan. It's good to say hello earlier, but it's nice to see you. Um, also, I forgot to ask, my microphone is running a little low on battery, so if it happens to cut out while I'm speaking, just wave at me. Um, I have an extra one. My first experience with practice was through meditation alone. Like I didn't find the Dhamma for maybe a year or two. And when I did, I guess I will say I understood some of it. Like I understood the point of meditation, why one would want to do that. And I understood the value of being kind to others, but most of it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And in particular, there's one kind of point of confusion that I remember and that I've heard from other folks. I remember hearing this from a Zen teacher, but you can find the same thing in any tradition. So Zen is kind of characterized by expecting a lot of diligence and effort from people, of sitting very straight with good posture and perhaps for long periods of time. And so that idea of effort is often put forth, but they also often share another viewpoint, this idea of what I received as making no effort, as one should be. Just kind of accept things as they are. And I remember finding that quite confusing. I'd say probably even frustrating or maybe even irritating sometimes. There's a quote that I really like that kind of encapsulates this. This is by Suzuki Roshi, and he says, "Each of you is perfect just the way you are, and you can all use a little improvement." Right? So it's kind of a like cute little quote, but I found that hard to kind of take in at some point. Which one is it? Should I make effort or should I not make effort? Is there something for me to do? Is there something not for me to do? Or is there not something for me to do? And so I want to talk about that tonight. I want to talk about effort in general, right effort, and kind of how to hold that and when to maybe step back. Talk about what is meant by everything being okay just as it is. So as far as effort goes, one of the Buddha's teachings on effort is the four great efforts. And you can sum up the four great efforts by saying the idea is to cultivate a wholesome mind state, right? And the Buddha likes his lists and his categorization, so he broke this up into four categories, and he said, right effort, the four great efforts, is to cultivate, figure out what encourages a wholesome mind state, and do those things. And also, once that wholesome mind state has arisen, do what you can to keep that going. And similarly, figure out what causes an unwholesome mind state to arise, and don't do those things. And when an unwholesome mind state has arisen, do what you can to help that go away. Wholesome mind state might mean things like the 7 factors of awakening, which you may have heard of. So mindfulness and investigation and energy and joy and tranquility, concentration, or collectedness and equanimity. All these things are very helpful and very supportive of practice. You can think about maybe the 10 paramis, so generosity and virtue and renunciation, wisdom, energy, patience, truthfulness, resolve, metta, and equanimity. You might also think about, in terms of the five hindrances, a wholesome mind state would be the absence of these. So the absence of tanha, the absence of, the absence of greed, the absence of aversion, the absence of sloth and restlessness and doubt. These are all wholesome states that you can cultivate. I don't think it's too helpful to get hung up on the specifics of, kind of exactly where the mind is. Is this mind state more equanimity or more tranquility or that sort of thing? You can tell what a wholesome mind state is by what it conditions, by if it's something that's onward leading, if it's something that leads you to suffering less. Um, so whether or not you can fit a particular mind state into any one of these labels is maybe not so important. Because really, this is your own determination. This is your own kind of process of figuring out what works for you. Certainly things like equanimity are beneficial for everyone, but the things that condition equanimity in me may be different than the things that condition equanimity in from you. And so this is really something you need to actively try and figure out on your own. What can I do that's onward leading? What can I do that leads to a life of less suffering? So that's maybe the what of skillful effort or wise effort. You can also think about how much, right? Um, you may have seen this in your practice. You may have gotten into a place where you're over efforting, where you're um, putting too much expectation on how things should go. When practice starts to become a source of self-criticism or judgment or stress in your life. And this is too much. This is too much. That's not helpful. But you also might have seen kind of the other end of the spectrum, where you're not maybe putting enough effort in. And maybe this is a little more subtle than seeing things like self-criticism or judgment, but practice it can be kind of like this guiding light in your life, this lodestone that points you in the right direction. Maybe it's not something you see kind of in every moment, but as something that's just generally present in your life. And if that's not the case, if you don't feel that, I think we all get into places where we kind of feel that light dim a bit. Then it might be time to put some more effort into practice. The Buddha has a really lovely teaching around this. I don't think it's my favorite sutta, but it's one of my favorite suttas. It's the Crossing of the Flood Sutta. I'll read the whole thing because it's quite short. And this is SN 1.1, Crossing the Flood. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove in Anathapindika's park. Then, when the night had advanced, a certain Devata of stunning beauty, illuminating the entire Jeta's Grove, approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, stood to one side and said to him, "How, dear sir, did you cross the flood?" Meaning, how did you find your way to enlightenment? And the Buddha replies, "By not halting, friend, by not stopping, and by not struggling, I crossed the flood." "But how is it, dear sir, that by not stopping and not struggling, you crossed the flood?" The Buddha replies, "When I came to a stop, friend, then I sank. But when I struggled, then I got swept away. It is in this way, friend, that by not stopping and not struggling, I crossed the flood." And so I really like this teaching because that sense of struggling is quite familiar to me. Like I spent a good amount of my practice doing just that. Um, Putting it in the context of swimming across this raging river, you can see why that's unhelpful. That it wastes your effort and it doesn't move you forward. But you also can't stop. If you get stopped, you get swept away. So um, what the Buddha is saying here is that the amount of effort to make is this kind of Goldilocks zone, right? Not too much, not too little, right in the middle. I think of it too, like riding a bicycle, right? So like, um, if this is not something you practice with, this idea of like how much effort should I give, um, it might be kind of confusing at first or not. It might not be easy to grasp, but it's just like riding a bicycle. If you pay attention to this idea of am I doing too much or too little, um, the mind will eventually figure it out. It will figure out the kind of middle way, just in the same way as you figure out how to ride a bicycle, just through trial and error. So that's what right effort is and how much um, how much effort you should use. Maybe another thing we can talk about is how this effort is held. What not intention, but what is the kind of motivation behind my practice? I know when I came to practice, the reason I was practicing was I wanted something to happen. I wanted to feel better. So my motivation was I want this to happen, right? But that's not really the best way to practice, right? Practice is a gift. What you do in the moment, um, whatever it is you're doing to practice, that is a gift that you're giving yourself. You are doing this thing that makes your life better. It makes the lives of those around you better too. So it is this gift that you're giving. And that is really the way to hold practice. It's not, when you give a gift, when you really give a gift, you don't give it with strings attached. You don't need the other person to react a certain way. It's just a gift given freely. That's the way to hold practice too. This is just this thing you're doing that leads to a better world for you and for others. Because you don't practice is onward leading in the general sense, but any given moment, any given specific action you take, it may not turn out the way you hope you want. So it's always best just to treat it as a gift. So what happens as we manage our effort and we continue to practice in a skillful way, what we're doing with this is we're changing the field of karma that conditions our lives, right? So we're uprooting bad karma and we're generating good karma. This has the effect of helping the mind quiet down. And when the mind quiets down, it can more easily see the world clearly as it is. So this is cultivating what's the word for this in Pali is samaditi. So diti being view or understanding of the world. And sama is often translated as right or wise. So right view or wise view, but I think often a better translation is harmonious. So harmonious view. This is what we're cultivating when we let the mind become quiet. We see the world as it is. And the, the reason samadhi is important, I guess the way I wanted to explain this is to point to an area in your life where you already have samadhi. So something you kind of understand in this way. And I'll say that that's gravity. So right, this is kind of a different different realm of experience, but you have samadhi with respect to gravity, right? And what that means is that you have a clear understanding of what this is, and it's not an understanding that lives in thought. Like when I have this glass in my hand and I want to put it here on the table, I just do the thing, right? I act harmoniously in accordance with gravity. I don't have to think about how much I need to engage my arm muscles. I don't have to worry about, is the water going to fall upward? Is that how gravity works? Right? It's a little silly, but we understand gravity in this harmonious way. But we don't have the same understanding with much of the rest of how the world works, right? So something like impermanence, we don't tend to have samadhi with respect to impermanence. Even if you can kind of intellectually understand that all things that arise must pass away, we don't tend to have that same harmonious movement through life with respect to impermanence. We take impermanent things to be permanent, and when kind of life puts lie to that reality, we suffer, we get upset. And what we do with right effort is we're cultivating samadhi about how the world really works. So one thing that we start to see when this happens is that this world is complete, just as it is. Nothing needs to be removed or added or changed or fixed or modified for there to be peace and happiness. And in fact, the striving and efforting that we do can sometimes obscure this. And so you might understand what happens as we're cultivating the samadhi is that the motivating force behind our practice. So for me, and I think for almost everyone when they come to practice, is this idea that something about me or the world needs to be different in order for me to be happy. That motivating force gets replaced by this other DT, this other view that the world is complete just as it is. And so we come to this place where we have the ability to accept the world just as it is. First, this may be just small things, some thought that would have sent us into, made us spin out in the past. We can just see that arise and pass away, and it doesn't pull the mind. There's some feeling in the body, some unpleasant thing that perhaps we would otherwise need to have fixed, can just be okay, just as it is. So I won't say it's a lessening of effort, but it's a shifting of effort to kind of more of it coming from this other view of the world. So acceptance is it's often misunderstood, right? When someone looks at experience and sees that they're making effort and hears this teaching that the world is okay just as it is, or is complete just as it is. I think what often happens is somebody says, oh, I want this acceptance, this peace, and tries to push away the effort, tries to make it go away. And that's not acceptance. That's just adding more effort, more striving into this. So this is another way to practice. You might think of it as maybe a different expression of right effort, but it's kind of qualitatively different than we're used to practicing. And so if you once I'll just give a few little pointers about how to practice this way. The teaching that I feel really speaks to this way of seeing the world, or way of practicing the best, is the third noble truth, my favorite of the noble truths. So the third noble truth is that the cessation of suffering is conditioned by the cessation of tanha, of craving, of wanting the world to be other than the way it is. So the cessation of suffering is the point of all this. This is what we're why we practice, right? And this comes about by letting go of tanha, letting go of the idea that the world needs to be different in order for there to be peace. And so the way to practice with this is really just very, very simple. It's really only two components. First, the noticing of tanha, of seeing when it arises or when it's present. And you can do that in a number of ways, right? You can feel it in the body. Tanha is expressed by the body as tension. So you can feel that often in your heart or your head, the head area. It's also kind of heralded by or associated with the afflictive emotions, like fear or anxiety, that sort of thing. It's also associated with the papancha around those emotions, the kind of cascade of thought that comes with that sort of thing. It's associated with a collapsing of awareness down towards the body, or kind of into the head. So you can notice these things and know when tanha is present. And the other part of this is just letting it go. So one thing you might do to condition this to occur is to ask yourself some questions you could ask yourself. So you could look at this tanha and say, is this necessary? Is this helpful? Does this need to be here? Right? And you can look at the thing that the mind is upset about and say, can this be okay? Right? And sometimes you ask these questions and no, it's still not okay. But sometimes you ask these questions and no, actually it is okay. And tanha can just go. There's no reason for it to be there. And after some time, you may not even need the questions. It just becomes this. Tanha becomes, like, seeing tanha as like touching a hot stove, right? It's just this instinctive reaction. Oh, this is not necessary, and it can just dissolve. But there's still a bit of effort to this kind of practice. It's not quite the same effort as, um, you know, I think most people understand practice to be a kind of direct imposition on the world of your will. But there is still effort involved in setting the intention to be present and doing what's necessary for tanha to let go, to be let go of. So this is not quite the fullest expression of the thing. There's still some effort here. And I see at least one person who's taking the fundamentals of Dharma class. So I'm going to share a sutta that's going to be familiar to you. The Rohitasa Sutta speaks to this point. So I think I'll paraphrase a little bit. So Rohitasa is this sort of supernatural being, and he comes to the Buddha and he says, "Sir, is it possible to know or see or reach the end of the world by traveling to a place where there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn?" So what he's asking here is there a way? Is there a place to get to uh, in this world to find enlightenment? These, it's phrased as a physical location, but the metaphor here is there a way to make effort to reach enlightenment? And the Buddha says, I say it's not possible to reach the end of the world by traveling to a place where there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn. So he's saying he's saying that you can't reach enlightenment by effort alone. So I think I'll read the very ending of it. It says, the end of the world can never be reached by traveling. So you can understand this as enlightenment can never be reached by effort alone. But without reaching the end of the world, there's no release from suffering. So an intelligent person, understanding the world, like samadhi, has completed the spiritual journey and gone to the end of the world, has found enlightenment. A calm one, knowing the end of the world, does not hope for this world or the next. So what he's saying here is what conditions enlightenment is, or what leads to enlightenment is samadhi. That's what I take from that, from seeing the world as it is, fully. So this effort that we make is necessary and it's helpful, but enlightenment is not found just through that. Enlightenment can only be found through surrender. And so what happens as we practice in this way, samadhi matures and grows, and we see clearer and clearer. What it brings us to is a full understanding of conditionality, understanding that this thing that we think we are, this body and this mind, is part of this web of conditionality. There is nothing outside of that. No part of us that's separate from this. You know, a seed falls to the ground, and if there's the right amount of nutrients in the soil and the right amount of water is given, then it sprouts. And if that sapling is not eaten, if the conditions are right, it grows into a tree. And given the conditions, sometimes the tree is in this state where the leaves are green and the flowers are blooming and it's lovely. And sometimes conditions change and the leaves fall and the flowers die. And sometimes the tree is healthy if that's what the conditions are. And sometimes conditions are such that the tree is sick and is attacked by parasites. And at some point, conditions are such that the tree dies. We are the same. We are the same. We are exactly the same. You know, an egg and a sperm meet, and if conditions are right, a fetus is born. If conditions continue to be right, a child is born. And depending on conditions, that child will go through periods where life is beautiful and lovely. And when conditions change, life will be hard and difficult and full of afflictive emotions. And depending on conditions, the body will be sick or healthy. And at some point, the conditions will no longer support that body being alive. And that being will die. We are no different. You're no different than the trees or the birds or the rocks or the stars or the galaxies. It's part of this web of conditionality. So what happens when we see this? We see the samadhi. We understand that there is no being outside of that experience in the world. Is that we see that the world is just experiencing itself. Right? And when stories that we have. The separate being feels like it has problems and hopes and dreams. And things feel like that belong to the thing that we think that we are. When those go away, we see that experience is just, we see that it's not really the right word for this, but the purpose of the thing is just joy. Just the world experiencing itself with joy. That's what it is. We see that experience as a gift. It's nothing other than a gift. It's just this monumental act of love. It's not given by anyone or given to anyone. It's just this gift, just this love. When this separate being that we think that we are, when that falls away, all the push and the pull that seems to go along with that goes away too. And this experience is just peace. And this is samadhi. This becomes our view. This is what practice leads us to see. When we see that happen, when we see that, what happens is this separate thing that we think we are, this body and this mind, it moves in alignment with that ditti, that harmonious view. This the motivating force behind this body and this mind becomes the gift, becomes joy, becomes peace, and becomes love. And this is where practice brings us. Maybe to bring this to a close, from this viewpoint, the effort that this body and mind makes, it's in a sense effortless, right? When there's no separate being, what is the effort that it takes for a leaf to fall from the tree? It's the same effort that it takes for the body and the mind to act. So this is where Suzuki Roshi was speaking from, the idea that, both of these things are true. You are perfect just the way you are, and you could use a little work. So I guess I covered a lot of ground in this talk. And so to sum up, maybe not to sum up, but maybe if you take one thing from this talk, and I would say that right effort is about being kind, right? So you are suffering. You would not be here if that were otherwise. You are not enlightened, and there is dukkha in your life. So be kind to yourself. Don't settle for the kind of false promises of the world that you can be happy if you just get enough money or get enough status. Be kind to yourself and investigate the source of suffering. Follow the path, follow the Dhamma to the end of suffering. But don't do so in a way that causes stress or causes suffering or is held so tightly that it hurts you. Be kind in that way as well. That's what I have to offer tonight. Thank you all for being here. I have a couple of announcements, and then I'll open the floor for questions or comments about the talk or about your practice or really anything Dhamma related. Right, so the weekly schedule is, I think, probably going to change pretty soon. So maybe keep an eye on the website for how that will end up. As far as specific events go, on the 12th of July, Dhammadippa is doing an art workshop on her thesis that she produced while she was in England. And the next day, on the 12th, there will be a a brunch for the Sangha, which I think some of you have been. Yes, some of you have been. And they're quite lovely things if you haven't. So I would highly recommend you come if you're able. Right. And so I'm happy to take questions or comments. You sweet thing. Nino, the temple cat, has come to say hello.
Has come to ask us questions.
Yes.
Hey, I have not come to this Sangha much, but thanks for your talk.
Sure.
Right effort is something that I've been thinking about for years with my practice, something I feel like I've struggled with. And I think one thing that I've been just sort of like sitting with is I've done a lot of like one-pointed concentration practice, and that it just felt so tight for so long that in some ways, like switching up the mode of practice is like doing open awareness practice has felt so much more skillful in terms of like what actually is right effort. And, you know, I don't know. I think it's just something, it's not really a question, but just a musing that I've had for a really long time of like, what does it mean to develop concentration and mindfulness while also noticing that I have these like really ingrained habit patterns when I try to focus on the breath or focus on one anchor of attention that gets very tight, even down to like very subtle ways. And what does it mean to loosen up and to not take it so seriously is something that I've just been experimenting with and have no answers, but just a lot of questions and musings on it. But at the same time, I can see how like a practice that develops concentration or mindfulness through single pointed concentration is so helpful, but somehow it feels inaccessible, um, or at least unskillful in terms of how I react or get wound up. So anyways, I just appreciate thinking more about like what actually is right effort, and the gravity example was quite helpful because I quite like gravity and how it works. So it's really nice to think about my relationship with it in the sense of ease and how that could be the same for practice. So thanks for that.
Yeah, a lot of what you said was quite familiar to me. I went through that same process of starting with concentration practice and really kind of putting a lot of effort into it and finding that I was in this place where it was very tight, you know. And remembering one retreat in particular, I would just get these like, I would be sitting and I would get these like almost headaches, like right in the middle of my forehead, just because I was putting so much effort into that. But you're noticing that and you're stepping away from that, I think was skillful. Um, the other thing you said that I think is helpful is noticing that it's a question without an answer, right? Because it's always a moving target, right? Right effort. What is right for you now in this moment will be different in the next moment. Something else will be, something will have shifted, and right effort will need to shift with that too. So practice is really always an open question like that. Yeah. Thank you.
I would add one thing, which is,
Can you guys hear Dhammadeepa?
or you could just wait here. I would just add one reflection, which is that
it's true for a lot of folks that trying to establish concentration on the breath is too narrow an object, and the idea would be one idea might be to try a different object, like something really big and fluffy and pleasant like metta. You know, there are 39 other traditional objects besides the breath, so it's good to check other things out that seems like the path a way for you to go.
Did you guys catch that?
In general, yeah.
Oh, they said no.
I don't know why, I was talking right into it. You wanna just repeat what I said?
Why don't you repeat it? I don't want to change your
Well,
words.
do you wanna just give me the one that you have
Yes,
on,
that
maybe
will
that's what it is? Can you hear me now? Okay. Very good, now you can hear me, Nancy. No, I was just mentioning that, it's a very common experience that for some people, using the breath as the object of concentration is too narrow, and it leads to more stress and a constrained mind. And there are, 39 other traditional objects besides the breath. So trying something really fluffy and pleasant and big, like metta, is might be another way to practice, or any of the other Brahma viharas might be a way to think about how to develop concentration without the tightness around it. So just a suggestion in general for all of you, not necessarily for Kyla, but yeah.
Oh, I'll jump in here just to make a few words. Yeah, I could really relate to what you were saying, Kyla, because I've had moments where it would be really too tight because my go-to meditation, particularly in my morning sits, are concentration, and sometimes I think, geez, I think I'm addicted to going to concentration because I so appreciate it. But I'm finding also like in the evenings lately, last few months, because of working with so much distraction that's out there, that throughout the day, when I'm doing my life during the day, and like for example, this evening, I thought, oh, okay, I'll just go to concentration, and it was like, no, it's too tight. It feels too tight. And what's interesting is I kind of dropped down into the abdomen, and to just feel the breath down there, which I've never really been comfortable with. But I found that I like, Stephen, how you say energy is kind of like this moving energetic field. It's moving target, so to speak. Because like for example, this evening it was like, and actually for the last couple weeks in the evenings, I've needed to bring my energy kind of like down into the earth, and it was just too much up here. And that helped to open things up so that I could go into that open awareness. So I find it helpful just to listen to the body.
Yeah.
And say, okay, body, where should I go now? Maybe it isn't the concentration this evening. And of course, with Dhamma, she brings in so many a number of different ways, working with the elements, or lately really appreciating working with sounds and hearing and touching and that sort of thing, just bringing me into the body in that kind of way. It seems a little bit more spacious and less tightness. Although I have to say, when I do when I go to my morning sit, I seem to always go to concentration, and I think it's because don't have a bunch of papancha going on in my head. If I get on that cushion right away, um, yeah, I think I said enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm. Mm. Yeah, I understand the pull to concentration practice. I wonder if you notice any sort of expectation when you do concentration practice. Any expectation that there's a kind of pleasant result.
Is that an open inquiry?
No, it's just something to notice, perhaps.
Yeah. Just as a, this is my own few words. I initially started working with concentration because my primary hindrance was restlessness,
Mm.
a lot of restlessness, for years of restlessness. And so, and so the concentration practice really helped me release some of the ants in my pants.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so now lately, lately being the last few years, um, well, even when there's just so much, I'm kind of in a strange way. It's interesting that when there's when there is distraction showing up with my sits, I'm not. I'm like, oh, isn't this interesting? I get
Mm.
to work with this. I'm not so judgmental with myself, which is feels so good because I've had a lot of practice for decades being so judgmental.
Yeah.
And instead, I'm just like, having been a musician for many years, I'm just like, oh, isn't this interesting? This is a new piece of music that's showing up now. Instead of
Yeah.
like going, oh my God, this is showing up again, and this is, and feeling more release and not
Mm.
holding on so tight. Anyway, those are a few of my thoughts.
That's lovely. I like that. Just another piece of music. And you know that that's really the trick, that stepping outside of the story is it is really a just a kind of direct path to freedom. And it can go very, very deep, like the story about what go all the way down to the story about what you are and what this body and mind are and how they're a part of the world. And that attitude of, oh, this is just another piece of music can be very helpful. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I also want to share some of my efforts I made in my life. Um, I feel in terms of meditation, I was introduced by a migrant friend in the beginning, and I started doing it just, trying. And um, after I started doing it more seriously, I also didn't have a purpose, even now.
Mm.
I actually don't know why I'm doing it. Like I don't have a goal. I'm just doing it because I feel I really like the energy around the
Mm.
community, and I feel pleasant and just, very peaceful after meditation. So I don't know what is a good meditation or concentration. I have no idea, basically.
Mm.
I'm doing meditation just like I'm exercising. That's it. And I feel joyful after it. But
Mm.
in my real life, I have a lot of kind of goals in my mind. I pay a lot of efforts to achieve some like normal like things we pursue in society. But when I look at my efforts, I actually really enjoy it, even
Mm.
sometimes under stress, because that's
Mm.
the time I transformed in a way. Like I didn't feel it was painful for me. I feel there was tension and I was changing. For instance, just simply how I learned English. It was a lot of efforts I paid. And it comes with self-doubt. And then, it's not only practicing language, it's also mentally changing me. How to view myself, how to pay the efforts and become a different person and get to know, like I get to know Buddhism and meditation through English materials. Even I maybe have some simple values of Buddhism because I grew up in China. So when I look back, I don't feel, at least now, I don't feel pain. Maybe in the past there was stress and pain, but I feel so grateful for the efforts I paid and people who helped me.
Mm.
So I think of course there is an extent in terms of efforts, but I feel I'm becoming a person I really like even
Mm.
through those efforts. Like even
Mm.
too tense, even I was being too tense. But of course now I'm more peaceful and knowing what I enjoy to do every day to, you know, live a happier and more peaceful life. But I still really love the past me, even I was very tense.
Mm. Thank you. That's great. That's great. Hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad you found value in meditation, that it's brought you peace and pleasant feelings. I'm so glad that efforts that you've made too in other parts of your life have kind of brought you, similar benefits or brought you benefits too. Hmm. I guess maybe the thing I would offer is that one thing that can be noticed about this sort of thing is that the pleasure that comes, or the pleasantness or the good feelings that come from achieving a goal are transitory. So, you've obviously like had some very good experiences and felt some good things, but did that last, right? Did that happiness from mastering English or having a good meditation, does that stick around forever, right? And therein lies the issue with kind of trying to find your happiness with um, this idea of efforting. Like efforting is not bad. Like it's necessary and it's good and it can be helpful if it's skillful. But the Dhamma points us to a kind of deeper truth in that this is not a way that brings about lasting peace. Right? Lasting peace requires something else. So that's maybe something to inquire as you enjoy all the wonderful feelings that you get from your efforts. Yeah, that's what I would offer. Yeah, it's good to see you again, Johan. It's been many months, probably like a year or so, maybe more.
Yeah, I started a new life this year. I moved from DC to Rochester to do my PhD.
Oh,
Yeah. And first year we have a qualification exam,
mm,
and it was pretty stressful, but I already passed it. Yeah. I have
oh,
been meditation myself, like at lunch break, like for a short time just to rest. But I haven't been online and been in community for a year. Yeah.
well, it's good to see you, and I'm glad for the move, and I'm glad you passed your test and things are going well for you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, it's getting a little late. So it's very lovely to see you all. It's always a treat to practice with folks, and thank you all for your coming and for your presence.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah,
Lovely.
thank you, Hamza.
And everyone, thank you.